We are honored to be joined by State Assemblywoman Nancy Muñoz, who's the Deputy Minority Leader in the lower house of the Assembly and also a nurse by profession. Good to see you, Nancy.
Nice to see you too, Steve.
Put this in perspective for us. So many issues to talk about, but as we do this program at the end of 2021, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, confusion at the State House around vaccine mandates. Because you're a public health expert, you've been in the business, you've been on the front lines, you volunteered your services the worst time of COVID. Should there be a vaccine mandate for every member of the state legislature, A, and B, should they show that they are vaccinated if they are?
Well, you know, it is a complex issue. I believe in vaccines. Obviously, as you said, I'm vaccinated. I had all three, including the booster, but I've also am a vaccinator. I have volunteered as recently as last weekend, vaccinating kids as, the 5 to 11-year-old group. And so I'm very much pro-vaccine. Whether we should mandate that every legislator receive the vaccine, we don't mandate that anyplace else in the state. So if we don't mandate that anyplace else in the state, do we require our lawmakers to be vaccinated? The issue with vaccines right now is that the majority of people in New Jersey have been vaccinated. 70% to 80% have been vaccinated, have received at least the first dose. 65-year-olds and older, it's 95% have been vaccinated. So do we mandate a vaccine card? And there's some resistance because there are people who have natural immunity from having been infected with COVID. And, I've had this discussion with the testing companies, the pharmaceutical companies. When do we get to a point where we can do a test that says, you've had the COVID, you've had COVID, and how do we test for that natural immunity? So, again, I encourage everyone to be vaccinated. I think that we have the data to prove that it is safe and effective. We've given 400 million doses, and 7,000 people have died, which is a 0.002%. So we know it's safe.
But Assemblywoman, here's the other part of it. You have always been a reasonable, moderate Republican whose common sense matters. And frankly, that's not my point of view. Not everyone, people who know you know this, that science dictates and healthcare dictates and medicine dictates how you view things. For a significant number of Republicans in your party who believe that the vaccine is an overstep, the vaccine itself is an overstep, the pushing of the vaccine is an overstep, that President Trump, yes, he got the vaccine, he and his wife did, but they didn't really promote it, that government conspiracy, what do you say to your colleagues when you know this is a public health issue and not a political issue?
Oh, it's a very good point, because the majority of my colleagues have been vaccinated. For the colleagues who are opposed to the mandate to get into the State House, for them, it's an issue about they call it liberty. It's a really tough.
They called it tyranny. Some of your colleagues, the quotes are here. It's tyranny. It's against the democracy. How could they? That didn't help, Nancy, and that's not even partisan or political. That just doesn't help.
I agree that it doesn't help, and and I wouldn't make it all Republicans, and I think we have to be very careful about that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's
vocal Republicans who are there.
And you know what? I look at this from the healthcare perspective as well, Steve. If you look at the number of healthcare workers who are refusing to be vaccinated, it's not a Republican or Democratic issue.
No, it's not.
For me, it's an education issue. It's an issue of education, of understanding, number one, that we know from the data that it's safe. But number two, that this is not an experimental drug. The technology, and if we believe in science, the technology to develop this vaccine in a quicker manner than it's been done in the past has been in the works for decades. So we should be celebrating the fact that we have got this technology in a more quickly than we have in the past. Listen, my father had polio. My mother's first patient ever died of tetanus. I've taken care of patients who have had meningitis. So we know that vaccines are important and vaccines work, but we know that it's safe. It's not tyranny. The other issue is that I think the issue for some of my colleagues was that they were requiring a policy that didn't apply anywhere else. And for my colleagues who oppose it, they wanted to be able to vote in person. The speaker made it available to vote you could vote virtually. And two of my colleagues did vote virtually because they weren't able to get there. One tested positive for COVID.
We'll see how this is going to play out. And I don't want, again, it's not about just that issue, because, again, we'll date ourselves as we've seen in 2022. But I want to ask you one thing really quickly on this. The role of Governor Murphy in leading in connection with COVID 2 years in. Please just succinctly describe what he's done well and what he hasn't.
Well, I think that, one of the things that people ask me what I heard on the campaign trail. And one of the things I heard on the campaign trail is an overreach of the executive branch. And so I think what he's done at the beginning, and I was part of the conversation, was to get more volunteers, to get every county had volunteers. I'm part of the Union County Emergency Medical Corps volunteer group. I was testing in March. So one of the things that we did really well at the beginning is we enlisted volunteers, and we really organized to get effective testing and those processes were good. We put in executive orders, but I believe at this point, what we've not done as well is it's time for the legislature to have a voice. We have been kept out of the process. This is, we have the legislature and the executive branch together make our policies and make our legislation, and we have been kept out of that. That's what we've heard loud and clear. We should be part of that discussion.
Assemblyman, only I'm managing time real quick. Got a minute left. Real quick on childcare. We're doing a series called Reimagine Childcare, connecting it to the economy, the state economic revival, and in the state, childcare and economic vitality.
Well, I think we just passed a piece of legislation the second, an important piece of legislation to give childcare credits to more people in the state. What we need to do with childcare is make sure that we allow childcare providers the ability to provide that childcare. Most people, middle-class people, working-class people, want childcare to be close to home with people that they know. They don't want to be regulated by the government. They want to be able to have that option to go to these providers who they know, and having a credit that goes directly to that family member to make those decisions. People make wise decisions when they can make them for themselves, and they can make economic decisions based on what's best for them, as opposed to allowing the government to say you can only go to certain child care providers.
Assemblywoman Nancy Muñoz is not just a nurse who's making a difference volunteering, but she's also the deputy minority leader in the state assembly. Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare, New Jersey Sharing Network, Holy Name, the New Jersey Education Association, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the Russell Berry Foundation, Johnson & Johnson, the Fidelco Group, and by Caldwell University. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Chamber and by ROINJ.
Data shows that many patients have avoided seeking critical health care in the wake of COVID-19 for fear of contracting the virus. Delaying medical care can have serious consequences, so you should never second guess or ignore your symptoms. At Holy Name Medical Center, we have measures in place to prevent infectious disease from spreading. We're clean, we're open, and we're safe for all your healthcare needs.